The old XS650. Might even be a survivor. Holy cow. A little bit of mayhem with the battery. Got an old battery. Got a new to me battery going in it. It's got a good charge, but the fluid's down a bit. As you can see, needs a bit of fill up. Good old Yuasa battery. Made in Taiwan. Well, it's close, I guess. Anyways, got the Tytronic electronic ignition going on. Never used these guys before. Thought I'd order it. It was about $100 or so. And that's a mouthful, isn't it? The Tytronic electronic ignition. And so, got the cover off, set to the T mark, and the paint marker works wonders in this situation. Kind of hard to see the marks. There we go. Anyways, that's loosely where it ought to be. And then I marked this thing here because I wasn't too sure where it would fire. So I put some paint marks on here. Cleaned out the carburetors. Squeaky clean. And set the float height. Got all the jets cleaned on it. The reason I put in electronic ignition is because these old points were arcing pretty badly. I'd cleaned them up previously. And between the old condensers and the old points, I just couldn't get it sorted out, which is pretty typical for these old points. And although you can buy Chinese replicas of these points, they're never like the originals. You know, if you can find old OEM, old stock, new old stock on eBay, Yamaha, that's the best. But even then, I mean, you know, 40 years, who knows, little tear in the package, you get rust on these things. And the metal that they used back in the day for these old points were quite different than the replicas you find on the internet. From my experience, I've tried several of them, and the stuff that you buy off eBay, unsurprisingly, is complete garbage for the most part. I haven't really come across a good set of points that you can buy that are replicas, so the old stuff. So anyways, I went to electronic ignition, no big deal. A couple things to note about the cam. You can pull this shaft out and push it back in and index it completely 180 degrees out. So be aware that if you put in an electronic ignition, that the timing marks are proper to where the crankshaft is on the F and T mark. So that's one of the little pitfalls some people fall into. The fuel valves were leaking, so I replaced them. The diaphragms in here. This is the part I used. I used a fuel petcock repair kit, K&S stock number 55-2004. K&S Technologies, it says. Sorry, I threw it in the garbage, so I got to pick it out of the garbage now. Here we go. And it lists all these motorcycles as a fitment. Well, it worked pretty good, but the little rubber O-ring they sent me from the petcock to the tank, it was too small. I don't know if it shrunk or what the deal was, but anyways, they're not leaking anymore. So that's pretty cool. She needs a new tire for sure. That's a previously enjoyed tire for sure. So I got the old battery hooked up to it and see if she'll fire up. The old Tytronic electronic ignition. Give her a little enrichener. Not bad. Cold start. A little bit of chaos going on. Getting it under control though. So these filters get pretty crusty. And what happens is, if you look down here, there's a screen, and the reason the screen's there is because when these start getting old, these start deteriorating, and they'll get sucked into the engine. So the screen is a little token gesture of keeping that from happening. You can't find replacements, then the best thing to do on these old bikes is to put these style filters here. They go on the back of the carburetor. They replace the stock filter. Because the volume of air going through the carburetor is increased, often you need to jet the carburetor. On CV carburetors, they are notoriously difficult to jet, on some of them near impossible to completely iron out flat spots in the throttle. If you're going to put on these pod type filters, K&N is sort of the original ones that started making these pod types. With several cheap Chinese ones online. However, the quality is as expected crap. The glue doesn't hold and the gauze is crap. So yeah, K&N filters are a little spendy for sure, but expect, if you have a CV type carburetor on this thing or on your motorcycle, then expect to do some jetting on your motorcycle, which can be tumultuous, time consuming, depending on your make, model, year. Some of these carburetors are just so difficult to tune with the pod filters, for sure. There's all kinds of different carburetors. Some are more receptive to tuning, like these old Hitachi carburetors off the Yamahas. They were pretty easy to tune with pod filters, whereas these GSXR, old slab side GSXR style carburetors, they were a little more difficult for sure. This YZF 600 carburetor, it might be ZX9. They could be a real nightmare when you start putting pod filters on these things. So be aware of that if you're going to put pod filters on. However, these old bikes are pretty receptive to it. They're detuned lumps. They were more user friendly than the more modern stuff. Still not running right on that cylinder. Right side smoking. It's hard to say at this point, but it's getting fuel and the spark's a little dodgy. Maybe this plug cap's crap. Well, got it running. Runs pretty good actually. He's got a bit of smoke coming out of that one pipe though on the right hand side. That's a little concerning for sure. However, it's been my experience over the years that you shouldn't panic too soon about it, because the bike's been sitting for a very long time. Last registered March of 1983. So, I mean, it's like 40 years. And I put lots of oil down the cylinders before I started it to lube it up. It could be all gummed up and sticking rings. So the best thing to do when you run a bike like this is run it through a couple heat cycles, get it really thoroughly heated up, and then I'm going to change the oil too to a 2050 and get that old oil out of there. Now I have changed the oil, and I did put in 1030, which is a little thin for this motorcycle for sure, but that left side is, or the right side is smoking like crazy. I have run into these cases before where it just stops, the rings unstick and the goop gets out of there, but you need to run it through a couple heat cycles. So before you go ripping an engine apart on an old motorcycle unnecessarily, it's always wise to run it through a couple of heat cycles, because it can be an expensive lesson and end in tears, because a lot of the parts aren't available for this anymore, the gaskets and whatnot. But the electronics, I got working electronic ignition. It works pretty good. The carbs, it's got a good tick over, settle into an idle, and it's not even fully warmed up. Like you can put your hand on the cylinder head, it's really cold out. Coming along anyway, NGK Iridium plugs, BR8EIX, which is a fine tipped plug. Iridium NGK plugs. I find that those Iridium plugs, they work really good. But gonna squirrel it away for now, just put it to rest for a while. I'm going down to Mexico on the old KZ750 back there. Gonna focus on getting ready for that trip. So anyways, the old XS650 lives the game. Holy cow. She's a little bit of a crusty unit, but she's getting there. So anyways, a little bit of update on the old XS650. I can't really think of anything else to say about it. The carbs were really nasty on this. It took a lot of scraping and steel wool and compressed air and ultrasonic cleaning and carburetor cleaning and this sort of thing. So yeah, man, it's they get pretty rough in there for sure. She needs new tires, the fork seal's leaking. So a lot of little niggly stuff, carburetor kits and stuff like this. It's such a minefield on Amazon and eBay. Probably goes without saying. There's that. So a lot of editing in the video. It gets really smoky in here. It's hard to breathe. It's crazy with these old bikes in the wintertime. The furnace is going and it's like -18 outside. So I don't want to leave the door open too long, but don't want to suffocate either. So anyways, got it running. Gonna throw it back together, all the covers and everything. Wrap it up, put all the parts away. The tank's really clean on. I'm really surprised about the tank. It's super clean, which is usually not the case with these old motorcycles. Crusty old XS650, probably live again to see another day. 6,943 kilometers on this thing. Wow, man. Like, not even used. Just been sitting most of its life. Anyways, when the weather warms up, I'm going to take for a rip around the block and get this thing through a couple heat cycles. Anyways, take care. I'll catch up with you again, and thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye for now.